fellow bookworms to Tibra's Den. My name is Whitney, and I have another ABC Author Challenge video for you, another book haul. I wasn't planning on getting any more books for a while until I worked my way through some of what I already have. I'm only up to the letter D as far as reading, up to the letter Q as far as what I got. And so I was planning on holding off for a little while, but I just needed to pick me up. The homemade advent calendar book tree has definitely been helping. I've really been enjoying that. But I just kind of wanted to surround myself with books. So there's a little bookstore in the town where I live. It's a little locally owned bookstore, and I thought, you know what, I'm gonna go visit there, help support that business, a local business, and just see what I can find. And I actually ended up, you can tell by the board, I ended up getting the rest of all the letters. So that was really exciting, especially because there was a couple of them I was really nervous about, especially X. Like I did not think I was gonna find X at all, and I actually found it pretty quickly. Like some of the other letters actually took me longer than X did. So really, really was pleasantly surprised by that. And she said, like, when I walked in, and she's like, "Can I help you?" And I was like, I explained what I was doing. It's like, "Oh, you'll find a letter for every author of the alphabet, or an author for every letter of the alphabet." And so, yeah, I did. And I didn't spend that long, like only about an hour, but definitely was a big pick me up. Definitely very healing for my soul. I walk in and this bookshop is so cluttered, so full of books. Like every wall is lined with books. The center of every room is lined with books, and then books are piled everywhere. And there's like little chairs here and there. Like it's just very like welcoming and cozy, but very cluttered, and I don't know, there's just you're surrounded by books. Like even where you pay for your books is covered in books. You kind of have to reach across. Absolutely love it. And I found everything I wanted. There was a couple letters like that I was worried about, and there was multiple authors, and I wanted to get more books, but it's like no, like just stick with one. You got so many books you need to read. So definitely was healing for me, helped pick me up a lot. Before I go into the haul, I do want to give an update on the last book I read for this challenge. I was going to wait on this because I am reading two books from the ABC author challenge for my festive, or for Steph Love's festive readathon. Two of those I picked for that readathon. But I'll probably talk about those books when I do, an update on the books I read for the readathon. So I decided, since I'm doing this haul, I'll go ahead and update you on this book. And it's my D author, I think you pronounce her name Mary Dime. And it's called Dead Man Docking. It's a bed and breakfast mystery. And so I think, she does, several of these mysteries. And so the main characters are very familiar to her, which you can tell that, in this book. Like, they're characters that are familiar to her, so they have a certain depth to them, which I appreciated. I generally don't like this type of murder mystery. I think they're so over the top, and they use a lot of humor, and it's just not very realistic. Like, even watching movies like Clue and I think, what is it called, Murder on Orient Express, I want to say, could be mistaken, but like those types of movies, my husband loves them, and I'm just like, I don't understand, like they're so over the top. And that's definitely the case with this book. So if you like those type of murder mysteries, you would probably really enjoy this. For me, it wasn't so much the writing or the story itself. It's just that's not my cup of tea. Those type of murder mysteries are not my cup of tea. I did think the author did a very good job as far as writing the story and everything like that. One thing I really appreciated is in the beginning of the book, she has a character list, which is very helpful for me because I really struggle keeping characters straight, especially when there's so many of them. And the clues I kind of lost track of, so I had no clue who it was in the end. I was just surprised by who it was. But yeah, as far as keeping characters straight, I really appreciated that list. But it was pretty enjoyable for what it was. It was a good, solid read. I didn't really struggle too much getting through it. It was one of those books, when I was reading it, I was enjoying it, but once I put it down, I really had to force myself to pick it back up, if that makes sense. But again, it's just simply because this type of book is not my cup of tea. So overall, pretty enjoyable. Not going to be keeping it on my shelf. It will stay with me for a little while longer until I complete the challenge, just because I'm going to be doing a summary at the end and kind of rating them all. So it will stay with me for a little while longer, and then it will go back into the cycle of being thrifted. So hopefully one day it will find a home where it could stay forever. But yeah, that's kind of my thoughts on it. But if you really like murder mystery types that are a little bit more over the top, you should definitely give this book a try. And now let's go ahead and get into the haul itself. So, like I said, I found a letter for every or an author for every letter of the alphabet. I did not have to take any penalties or anything like that. And so I'm pretty excited with what I found. And several of these I'm really excited for. Like, I can't wait to read. So the first one was my art author. And I will say, so the way this bookstore is laid out, she has it somewhat organized, but it's so cluttered, it's not fully organized. And so there is some alphabetizing, but not fully, if that makes sense. So it did help on some of the harder letters, but I still had to really search and find these authors. And so I did find several art authors, but none of them really seemed like something I would enjoy until I found this book. And it's called The Orchid House by Lucinda Riley. And I'll go ahead and read the synopsis for you. So it says, as a child concert pianist, Julia Forrester spent many idyllic hours in the hothouse of Wharton Park, the grand estate where her grandfather tended exotic orchids. Years later, while struggling with the overwhelming grief over the death of her husband and young child, she returns to this tranquil place, where she reunites with Kit Crawford, heir to the estate and her possible salvation. When they discover an old diary, Julia seeks out her grandmother to learn the truth behind a love affair that almost destroyed the estate. Their search takes them back to the 1940s when Harry, a former heir to Wharton Park, married his young society bride, Olivia, on the eve of World War II. When the two lovers are cruelly separated, the impact will be felt for generations to come. This atmospheric story alternates between the magical world of Wharton Park and Thailand during World War II. Filled with twists and turns, passion and lies, and ultimately redemption, The Orchid House is a beautiful, romantic, and poignant novel. So, really excited for this one. It kind of gives me, just reading the synopsis, it makes me think of Secrets of the Lost Summer by Carla Neggers, and I love that one. So I am really excited to read this one. Out of this batch, I think this is one of my most anticipated reads. And it's definitely up there with some of the others from the previous batches. So, and then next is my S author. I'm probably going to butcher his last name, and I'm so sorry. But this one has an Edgar Allan Poe element to it, which I absolutely love. And it's called Nevermore by Harold Chester. I want to say is how you pronounce his name. I could be butchering that, but I'm really, really excited. So let me go ahead and read the synopsis for you guys. It says, praised by Caleb Carr for his brilliantly detailed and above all riveting true crime writing, Harold Chester brings his expertise to a marvelous work of fiction, superbly rendering the 1830s Baltimore of Edgar Allan Poe. Chester taps into the dark genius of that legendary author and follows a labyrinthine path into the heart of a most heinous crime. Nevermore, a literary critic known for his scathing pen, Edgar Allan Poe is a struggling young writer. Plagued by dreadful ruminations and horrific visions, suddenly he is plunged into an adventure beyond his wildest fantasies, a quest for a killer through Baltimore's highest and lowest streets and byways. A string of ghastly murders is linked by one chilling clue, a cryptic word scrawled in blood. It is a terrifying lure that ensnares Poe in a deadly investigation, and along the way his own macabre literary imagination is sparked as he unveils dark realities stranger than any fiction. So, really, really excited for this one as well. Kind of in a different way than The Orchid House. The Orchid House seems like it's right up my alley. This one just seems like something that is going to catch my interest for sure, but not necessarily something that I would gravitate towards on my own. The next one I believe it's nonfiction, but I'm not entirely positive on that. And it's by Shannon Tegay, I want to say, and it's the Lost Book of Moses: The Hunt for the World's Oldest Bible. And yeah, let me go ahead and read the synopsis for you guys. And it says, in the summer of 1883, Moses Wilhelm Shapira, archaeological treasure hunter, inveterate social climber, and denizen of Jerusalem's bustling marketplace, I'm stumbling over these words here, arrived unannounced in London, claiming to have discovered the world's oldest Bible scroll, written centuries earlier in the barren plains east of the Dead Sea and stashed away in caves. The mysterious scrolls called into question the divine authorship of the scriptures, taking 3,000 years of religious faith and turning them upside down. When news of the discovery leaked to the excited English press, Shapira became a household name. But before the British Museum could acquire them, Shapira's nemesis, French archaeologist Charles Clermont Ganneau, denounced his find as a fraud. Humiliated, Shapira fled the country. 6 months later, he was dead. With the discovery of the eerily similar Dead Sea Scrolls in 1947, investigators reopened the case, wondering whether the ill-fated merchant had, in fact, discovered the first Dead Sea Scroll decades before the rest. But by then, Shapira's scrolls had vanished. Tegay, award-winning journalist and son of renowned Bible scholar, set out to find the scrolls and determine Shapira's guilt or innocence for himself. The globe-trotting hunt that follows vibrates with the suspense of a classic detective tale. Weaving meticulous research into a fast-paced storytelling, Tegay spins a remarkable tale of history and theology, intrigue and scandal, greed, ambition, and struggle for authenticity. With a brilliant eye for detail, Tegay takes us from restricted storerooms at the Louvre to musty English attics to a flooded Jordan Gorge, and to the German countryside where he meets Shapira's aggrieved descendants. At once historical drama and modern day mystery, The Lost Book of Moses brings to life 19th century London and Jerusalem and a cast of rogues, reverends, and relic hunters, at whose center sits Moses Wilhelm Shapira, a flamboyant, ingenious, and ultimately tragic personality. So, yeah, really excited. This one, I think I'm either gonna love it or hate it. I'm not really sure how this one is gonna go, but it definitely sounded interesting to me as well. So excited for that one. And then this one is my U author. I was really nervous and I did have a little bit of trouble um, finding a U author. I found this book and then on my way back through to find some of the other letters, I found another U author and I almost put this book back, but there's just something about it that I wanted to stick with this book. And so it's called Exodus Revisited by Leon Uris. And it says Exodus is the story of the greatest miracle of our times, the rebirth of a nation. It tells the story of Jews coming back after centuries of abuse, torture, and murder to carve an oasis in the sand with guts and with blood. Their story was a revelation to me as I discovered it in the farms and cities of Israel. These were Leon Uris's own words about Exodus. Now, Exodus revisited, he returns to the places and the people that first inspired his famous novel. He takes you with him on his sentimental journey on this heartwarming return to a vibrant young nation with an ancient and violent past. And so, one thing I liked about this one, it's not going to be much reading. It's mainly like photographs. It just has it's filled with photographs. So there is some reading, as you can see, a little bit, but it's mostly just photographs. So it's a story through photographs. And yeah, excited to check this one out. And the next one was another one I found in the nonfiction section, and it is by Marcel Vertes, I want to say is how you pronounce his name, and it's called It's All Mental. And so I saw this one, and I was reading the back, and this is another one I almost put back because as I was walking back through, she had like a pile of like just black bound books. They were hardback, but they didn't have like a dust cover or anything like that. And it was a bunch of collections of different famous authors and like classics and such, and one was Voltaire. And so I almost put this one back and got that one. I almost got both of them, but I don't know. Seeing that collection, it was like if I was gonna get those, I almost want to get the whole collections. Like it had, I think, Charles Darwin and like a bunch of different people and such. So I ended up sticking with this one, but it says in this sophisticated and vastly amusing spoof, an internationally renowned artist casts off his inhibitions and sharply satirizes the more familiar foibles and follies of psychoanalysis. That is, psychoanalysis with a capital SEX. The result is unmitigated joy, a source of far from innocent merriment that will be relished by the millions who are fed up with it all, as well as those who take their parlor psychology seriously. With saucy continental wit, a marvelous understanding of character and situation, and an uncanny knack for capturing typical attitudes in picture and caption, Vertes brilliantly portrays all kinds of people and their problems, on the couch and off. One belly laugh follows another in this hilarious comeuppance, and only those who have completely abandoned their sense of humor to the pundits and phonies will fail to view the characters and exaggerations in their proper perspective. Veritas has beamed a ray of sunshine into the fog of weary formulas. He has rescued your favorite subject and mine from the insidious bores who have almost succeeded in exiling it once again into the limbo of the unmentionable. In the Cold War between men of goodwill on the one side and postgraduates of the third degree, freshman Freuds, and amateur analysts on the other, no more effective weapon than this book has yet been devised. It's All Mental was an instantaneous success when first published in an expensive limited edition. It was a greater success in France, where it appeared in an even more expensive, lavishly produced portfolio. The publishers are happy to make it available to the general public at a price that will assure its acceptance as the perfect gift book, get well token, or reception room amusement. And again, this one's not going to have a lot of reading, but it looks really fun. So I can't wait to check this one out further. And I think I like that I have a couple that aren't necessarily just reading. They're still books, there's still something to be gained from them. And the next one is My W, which is by Wayne Worcester. And it's called The Monster of St. Marylebone. I probably butchered that pronunciation, but it's from the never before published journals of Sherlock Holmes' companion and chronicler, Dr. John Watson. So, really interested in reading this one. And let's see. So, it says a brutal man is on the loose in St. Marylebone neighborhood. Prominent shopkeepers are being viciously murdered and mutilated, and Scotland Yard is at a loss for clues. They have no choice but to turn to Sherlock Holmes for a solution. But when Holmes himself falls victim to the killer's violent malice, his mission becomes a personal one. He and Watson continue their search for the murderous demon terrorizing London, and who will do anything to see them dead. This is the first in a new series, so really excited. I love Sherlock Holmes. I love Watson. I hope we have cats named Sherlock and Watson. So really excited for that one as well. And then my ex-author, I'm probably gonna butcher this name, and I'm so sorry, but it's called A Case of Two Cities, an Inspector Chen novel by Q Xiaolong. Um, I want to say is how you pronounce that name, but I'm probably butchering it. That's the best I could do. So there is library stickers covering the full synopsis, and there was one other book by this author, and it was just like a more classic like murder mystery, and one of the tales was I can't remember what it's called, something about the red dress. Let's see if it's in this one. And let's see here. See if I can find a list. Um, Death of a Red Heroine, I want to say. Um, but maybe not. That doesn't sound quite right. But anyway, I read both of them. This one seemed more up my alley, so I got this one. I'm gonna have to kind of jump down. It's something about Inspector Chen, anti-corruption case. Well, I can't read that. And then the United States and beyond the reach of Chinese government. But Xing left behind his organization, and Chen, while assigned to root out the co-conspirators, is not sure whether he's actually being set up to fail. In a twisting case that takes him from Shanghai all the way to the United States, reuniting him with his colleague and counterpart from the U.S. Marshal Service, Inspector Catherine Ron, Chen finds himself at odds with hidden, powerful, and vicious enemies. At once a compelling crime novel and an insightful, moving portrayal of contemporary China, A Case of Two Cities is the finest novel yet in this critically acclaimed award-winning series. So, I wish I could have read more of the back for you, but or the synopsis, like the beginning of it, but still, just that little part of the synopsis really seemed interesting, and so I can't wait to read this one. And yeah, really excited for that. I kind of want to see if it has information on the author. Uh, oh, here's the other one. Mandarin Dress was the other one that was there, and I decided not to get that one, even though it did sound interesting. I just decided not to get it. So let's see. I don't see any information on the author himself or themselves. I'm not sure if it's female or male, but yeah, excited for that one. And then the next one is, of course, my Y author is W.M. Paul Young, and the book is called Eve. So it says, on a mysterious island between our world and the next, a young woman washes ashore, broken and barely alive. John, the kind collector who finds her, enlists the aid of healers and scholars, and they soon discover that her genetic code links her to every known race. No one would guess what her survival will mean to all of humankind. No one but Eve, mother of the living. A bold, unprecedented exploration of the creation narrative, the story of Eve is true to the original text and centuries of scholarship, yet with breathtaking revelations that challenge traditional beliefs about who we are. As the shack awakened readers to a personal, non religious understanding of God, Eve frees us from the faulty interpretations that have corrupted human relationships since the Garden of Eden. Thoroughly researched and exquisitely written, Eve is a masterpiece that will inspire readers for generations to come. So, this cover is absolutely stunning and really excited to read this one. Obviously, I've never read The Shack, but maybe I'll check that out if I really enjoy this one. So, and then lastly, well, not second to last. This is the last in, of course, the alphabet challenge. I saw this as soon as I walked in, and of course, part of the challenge is to do it in order. So I had to wait to get this one. I did find some other Z authors, but I decided to go with this one. Like, she had some books like on display, like that kind of stood out. Like on the corners going into different rooms and such. It says, Who is the River? Getting Lost and Found in the Amazon and Other Places by Paul Zallis. And so again, I think this one is non-fiction, but I'm not completely 100% sure. So it says, when Paul Zallis embarks with Tano, his longtime friend and traveling companion, on a month-long boat trip to the Amazon River basin, their goal is to find pyramids rumored to exist deep in the jungles, which their German guide, Kurt Gluck, a 40-year veteran of expeditions in South America, has apparently seen. Leaving the hot congestion of Manaus, Brazil, behind them, the trio moves up the Rios Negro and Padari to a remote area near the Venezuelan border where Indians are said to be armed with military weapons and, according to local lore, to be in contact with the people from the stars. The trip grows increasingly dangerous, humorous, and convoluted as Gluck provides a loony theme song, whistling the daring young man on a flying trapeze over and over while constantly confusing the words who and where. When the trio gets terribly lost, which is often, he asks again and again, who is the river? This unanswerable question, the backdrop for this offbeat adventure, also initiates a parallel journey, a search through Zalas's memory that pieces together past travels, the endurance of friendship, and the bittersweet memories of the end of the 60s. And like the river itself, which flows through and sustains a vast tangle of life, Zalas' memoir drifts easily from the present to the past, to other rivers, other journeys. He takes us from the still heat of childhood Florida afternoons, watching missiles rise out of Cape Canaveral, to a college hitchhiking trip through the winter Rockies in order to spend 24 hours with the girl he loves, to the May Day demonstrations in Washington, D.C., to the closing of New York's Fillmore East, to Berkeley and the end of the Flower Children era, to Iran just prior to the revolution, to a star-crossed overland trip to Colombia, to a magical night in Greece. Finally, though, it is overwhelming presence of the Amazon, its dangers, its beauties, its refusal to correspond to any map that transports the author, slipping from the description to meditation, from conversation to silence. Who is the River recounts an inner journey as twisting and difficult as the Amazon itself, a cultural catalog of generation foundering in rebellion, youth, and confusion. Zalas weaves together the various threads of his own life as gracefully as he describes the complexity of the river, and in the end, it is the journey itself that becomes important and satisfying. Rich in pleasure and illuminative powers we associate with our best literature, Who is the River opens out to encompass more than it says. Captivating, lyrical, offbeat, poetic, this is truly an impressive debut on an evocation of its time, as essential as On the Road, a chronicle of friendship and travel as universal and moving as Huckleberry Finn. So, really seemed interesting to me. And again, I think it's either going to be really enjoyable or not so much. But I definitely, it caught my attention and I can't wait to read that. And then lastly, I know this video is getting longer, but the last book I got was an Agatha Christie book after reading The Mysteries of Mrs. Christie by Marie Benedict, which was my B author for this challenge. I wanted to read an Agatha Christie book. I never have, and so she had a whole collection. I decided to go with The Mysterious Affair at Styles because that was prominent in the book I read. And so that's the one I'm going to be reading. And yeah, I'm really excited for this one. I'll go ahead and read the synopsis just in case you're not familiar with it. But dapper, brilliant Monsieur Poirot, renowned chief of Belgian police, found a new home in England through the generosity of Emily Cavendish, mistress of Styles Court. Poirot quickly discovered a startling way to repay his benefactress. A coroner's jury named her a victim of murder by person or persons unknown, and the electric detective came out of retirement knowing he was the only man who could catch her killer. A magnificent old English country estate is the scene of Poirot's first triumph of detection and the scene to be of Curtin, his last case. So, and yeah, it's the debut of this detective. You know, she obviously used him in a lot of her works, but, and I'm probably pronouncing the name wrong. Excuse me. I'm horrible with pronunciations. But yeah, really excited to read this one as well. And I'll probably go back and get more if I really enjoy it. I really do want to get her autobiography though. I'm really intrigued after reading The Mystery of Miss Christie. But yeah, that's it for now. I will slowly be giving you guys updates as I work my way through all these books. I have these ones, and I'll have my 25 days of Bookmas books to read. But there'll be updates as I slowly work my way through them. I'm gonna go ahead and leave you guys here. Sorry for the longer video. I hope you watched to the end. If you did, go ahead and leave a comment using um bookstore. And yeah, happy reading everyone. Bye.